Can someone please explain to me how we are allowing one of the most significant fisheries in the country to be ruined? Not through overfishing or poor management practices, but through pollution. Pollution that could be mitigated. Pollution that could be limited. The crime scene. Every summer, something catastrophic happens at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. An area the size of a small state, sometimes larger, goes biologically dark. Fish flee. Shrimp suffocate. Bottom-dwelling creatures that cannot swim away simply die. The seafloor becomes a wasteland. This is the Gulf of Mexico dead zone, and it is not a mystery. It is not an act of God. It is not an accident. As Trevor Russell, Water Program Director at Friends of the Mississippi River, puts it plainly, this is a recurring human-made disaster. The Gulf of Mexico dead zone is the second largest dead zone in the world and is directly related to the levels of nitrogen and phosphorus pollution entering the Mississippi River. This means it is reversible, even preventable, if proper control measures are enacted by the federal government and states in the Mississippi River Basin. That's the part that should make every American angry. We know exactly what it is. We know exactly why it happens. We know how to fix it. And for 3 decades, we have chosen not to. How it works, the science. Think of the Mississippi River as a drainage system for your street, except it connects 31 US states and even parts of Canada. When farmers apply fertilizer, the excess nutrients, such as nitrogen and phosphorus, can run off during a rainstorm or snowmelt and end up in waterways that feed the Mississippi River. And farms aren't the only source. Urban runoff, such as fertilizer from lawns and golf courses, and discharges from sewage treatment plants, also feed into the Mississippi. These nutrients are ultimately funneled into the Gulf of Mexico, sometimes traveling more than 1,000 miles downstream. Once those nutrients hit the warm Gulf waters, they trigger a feeding frenzy for algae. The algae blooms explosively, then dies. As it sinks and decomposes, bacteria consume it, and in doing so, consume the dissolved oxygen that fish, shrimp, and crabs need to survive. NOAA estimates the dead zone costs U.S. seafood and tourism industries $82 million a year. The impact could be devastating to the Gulf seafood industry, which accounts for more than 40% of the nation's seafood. Louisiana is second in seafood production only to Alaska. Crops take up on average just 40% of the nitrogen that is applied each season. The excess can run off into waterways, leading to a high nutrient load in the Mississippi River. The scale of the problem. The numbers are staggering. Worldwide, the total area of ocean dead zones has quadrupled since 1950. The 2024 Gulf Dead Zone measured as the 12th largest on record, coming in at 6,705 square miles, more than double the size of the Twin Cities 7-county metro area. In 2025, the dead zone covered 4,402 square miles, an area nearly as large as the state of Connecticut, and more than 1,000 square miles bigger than the 7-county Twin Cities metro. The 2017 record stands at over 8,700 square miles, nearly the size of New Jersey. The 5-year average of the dead zone currently sits at 4,298 square miles, more than twice the Hypoxia Task Force's goal of 1,900 square miles by 2035. We are not trending toward that goal. We are nowhere near it. How it got this bad, the long history of failure. This is where the story goes from disturbing to infuriating. The federal government has been aware of this crisis since the 1990s. In 1996, the dead zone came to national attention through local reporting. The Gulf of Mexico Hypoxia Task Force was established in the fall of 1997, a collaboration of state, federal and tribal agencies, and asked to create and implement an action plan. What followed was a masterclass in bureaucratic inaction. The Hypoxia Task Force developed an action plan in 2001, and failing to make significant progress, developed another one in 2008, another in 2013, and another in 2015, with each version pushing the goals further into the future. 28 years. 4 failed action plans. 1 goal that keeps getting moved to a later date. The structural reason is damning. EPA is relying solely on individual states to enact the necessary regulations or control measures to rectify the problem of nitrogen and phosphorus pollution. The states in turn are relying in large part on voluntary compliance measures from farmers and industries. And it's not working. The task force's action plan is hindered by a lack of enforceable limits on nitrogen and phosphorus, according to the Tulane Institute on Water Resources Law and Policy. Instead, it focuses on voluntary state efforts and guidelines. In other words, polluters are being asked nicely to stop polluting. and they largely aren't. Agriculture pollutes more waterways than any other industry. Yet it remains the industry most shielded from meaningful regulation in this crisis. Why nothing has been done, the political reality. To understand why decades of inaction have persisted, follow the money and the map. The Mississippi River Basin drains 41% of the continental United States and cuts through the heart of America's agricultural economy. The states upstream, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Minnesota, Missouri, are home to millions of acres of corn and soybean fields, and their congressional delegations are among the most powerful in the country on agricultural policy. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service invested $14.2 billion between fiscal 2010 and 2021 on voluntary conservation programs in the 12 task force states. Billions of dollars. Voluntary. No enforceable results required. Officials have concluded they will not meet a 2025 deadline to stem the flow of nutrients after failing to achieve benchmarks set for 2000 and 2010. At the rate we're going, it's going to take about 150 years, said Denise Wardrop, a Bay Program science advisor. That quote, from researchers studying the analogous Chesapeake Bay cleanup effort, applies with equal force to the Mississippi. When the Mississippi River Collaborative attempted to compel the EPA to fulfill its own Clean Water Act obligations, by petitioning for enforceable numeric limits on nitrogen and phosphorus, the agency resisted. Voluntary programs are politically safe. Mandates are not. Agricultural lobbies are among the best funded and most politically influential in Washington. Setting enforceable pollution limits on farms means confronting that power directly, and no administration has been willing to do it. The new threat, gutting the watchdogs. Just as this crisis demands more scientific scrutiny, the federal agencies responsible for monitoring it are being dismantled. Large sections of NOAA staff have been reduced, and USGS research and data collection funding faces millions of dollars in cutbacks. Slots for federal agency representatives on the Hypoxia-focused task force also remain unfilled. The Trump administration's FY 2026 budget proposals were sweeping. The FY 2026 budget eliminates all funding for climate, weather, and ocean laboratories and cooperative institutes and does not fund regional climate data and information, climate competitive research, the National Sea Grant College Program, Sea Grant Aquaculture Research, or the National Oceanographic Partnership Program. NOAA could undergo a 40% funding decrease in 2026 as part of the Trump administration's budget proposal. February 27, 2025. Around 880 employees, over 7.3% of NOAA's total staff, were abruptly terminated. Congress has pushed back bipartisanly on the most extreme cuts, but the damage to institutional capacity and scientific continuity is real and ongoing. Whether key federal agencies such as USGS and NOAA will have sufficient funding and manpower to gauge if reduction goals are even being met is now uncertain. Put plainly, we may soon lose the ability to even measure how bad the problem is getting. What the solutions are, and why they aren't being implemented. Scientists and environmentalists are not at a loss for answers. The solutions are well established. The obstacles are political. Cover crops and continuous living cover. Most upper Midwest row crops like corn and soy only grow during the summer, which means fields don't retain much water or fertilizer during the wet spring and autumn months. By incorporating crops that grow year-round, such as kernza or pennycress, living root systems can limit the excess nutrient runoff that drives the damaging aquatic algae growth in the Gulf. The problem, for every farmer implementing conservation practices, there are 1,000 not doing so. Other agricultural practices, more tile drainage, more livestock and more fertilizer, are thwarting plans to slash nitrogen and phosphorus washing into the Gulf. Enforceable pollution limits. The Chesapeake Bay provides a precedent. A key component of the Chesapeake Bay cleanup program is regulation, a legally enforceable, multi-state pollution quota. Its creation and enforcement took political arm twisting, including an act of Congress, a presidential executive order, and multiple lawsuits. The same political will simply does not exist for the Mississippi. Wetland restoration and river diversions. Reconnecting rivers to their floodplains not only helps mitigate floods, but filters excess nutrients from the water. Louisiana has a nutrient reduction strategy that includes river diversions, restoration projects designed to build and sustain coastal wetlands that filter nutrients. Smarter fertilizer management. NOAA is working with states to develop new runoff risk forecasting tools that help farmers determine when to use fertilizer, based on anticipated rainfall amounts. But the agencies developing those tools are now being defunded. The projection: what happens if nothing changes? This is where the science becomes genuinely alarming. Models project that today's nutrient pollution levels will lead to more severe dead zones in the future due to human-driven climate change, including warming and increases in heavy rain. Like a can of soda going flat on a hot day, warming coastal waters will hold less dissolved oxygen. Warming will make the oxygen-rich top waters even more buoyant and harder to mix down. In addition, warming is projected to speed up the pace at which bacteria break down dead algae, meaning even greater oxygen depletion. Under future climate conditions, the same nutrient pollution levels are likely to make the Gulf dead zone worse in terms of size, severity, and duration. The Gulf of Mexico is projected to warm approximately 4 degrees Fahrenheit from the 1980s-90s to the end of this century. As Louisiana State University ocean ecologist Nancy Rabelais, the country's leading expert on this crisis, has stated directly, "If the climate does change in that region, there is a fair amount of evidence suggesting you would expect things to get worse." One 2008 study found a steady rise in the number of global dead zones over time. That year, researchers detected 400 dead zones in coastal and marine estuaries worldwide, up from 305 in 1995 and 162 in the 1980s. The trajectory is clear. The dead zone will grow larger, last longer, and reach deeper into commercially vital Gulf fisheries. If the amount of pollution entering the Gulf isn't reduced, the dead zone will continue to wreak havoc on the ecosystem and threaten some of the most productive fisheries in the world. And climate change is making the problem worse as warmer ocean water holds less oxygen. The Gulf's shrimping and fishing communities, already economically fragile, face an existential threat. Louisiana, which depends on Gulf fisheries for cultural identity and economic survival, has lost over 2,000 square miles of land in the past 100 years as surrounding marshes erode. The dead zone is one of several compounding forces that may render the Louisiana coast unrecognizable within a generation. The bottom line: this is not a story about a problem we don't understand. We understand it completely. This is a story about a democracy that has proven incapable, so far, of confronting a powerful industry causing measurable, documented harm to a shared natural resource. The EPA knows. NOAA knows. The states know. Farmers in Iowa know. The shrimpers in Louisiana know. The scientists have been screaming for 30 years. And yet every summer, the oxygen leaves the water. And the Gulf goes silent. We need to understand that unless we fundamentally change how we address this pollution, from farming practices to federal and state policies, there is no way we will meet the 2035 goal, Russell said. At the current pace of action, that goal will likely be pushed back again. To 2045. To 2055. Until the deadline is simply the date the fisheries collapse. So why are we allowing one industry to completely destroy another? Why are we not regulating their discharges? Why are we standing for so many missed deadlines? The story of the Mississippi River dead zone is ultimately a story about who has power in America, and who bears the cost of that power. The answer, as it so often is that the people with the least power, coastal fishermen, rural communities dependent on clean water, and the marine life that cannot speak for itself, are the ones paying the price.